No matter how dire the situation, the government is always capable of making it worse. South America knows this for sure. Political strife, economic inequality, pollution, and rampant violence are just some of its problems. But at the same time, South America is a fertile place for business and opportunity. The continent is known for cash crops, farming, livestock, forestry, fishing, base metals, precious minerals, hydrocarbons, hydropower, and what is commonly believed to be drug trafficking. In fact, South America is so rich in minerals that it has fallen victim to the so-called resource curse. Much of the local infrastructure is based on exports, with the result that domestic markets are in decline. The domestic economy suffers from poor infrastructure, limited access to capital markets, and a shortage of skilled labor. For authoritarian China, South America is also a unique place, a region with a rich history of similar authoritarianism. These conditions make the continent an ideal investment destination. The fact is that if China does deals, it prefers to sign long-term contracts, preferably with state-owned enterprises because they are considered more reliable. When investing capital, China also takes into account the existence of state institutions. South America has structures strong enough to enforce contracts, but not so ethical as to uphold idealistic values such as labor laws, respect for human rights, and the eradication of economic crime. In addition to this, most South American governments are presidential systems, where the president is the head of the executive branch, which means Chinese politicians do not need to traverse multi-level bureaucracy. Instead, they can negotiate directly with the head of state. Peking is agnostic. It is not interested in how others do business in their country. He certainly does not care whether they are authoritarian or democratic. He just wants to do business, and business is going well. Today, China is South America's largest trading partner. For Chile, trade with China accounts for 34% of total trade. Brazil and Peru follow with 28%. Uruguay with 20%. Ecuador with 19%, Colombia and Paraguay with 18%, and Bolivia and Argentina with 14%. China's leading partner, however, is Venezuela. It serves as a springboard for Chinese investors. Caracas has taken 17 loans worth $62 billion. Most of the money is earmarked for oil exploration and production, but the amount is so large that critics believe Venezuela is on its way to a death trap. Using its lobbying influence in Venezuela, China joined the Inter-American Development Bank in 2008 and the Caribbean Development Bank a year later. In both cases, China became a voting member. These efforts are already bearing fruit, but China has not stopped there. Peking has lent Ecuador more than $18 billion for various infrastructure projects, including the Coca-Cola-Sinclair hydroelectric plant. That's a lot of money for Ecuador. Interest payments from the hydropower plant alone amount to $125 million a year. And now Ecuador is negotiating a free trade agreement with China. To date, China has invested $3 billion in Bolivia, but the amount will increase in the coming year. Recently, Bolivian state companies signed an agreement with the Chinese corporation C2C for the exploration and mining of lithium deposits worth more than $1 billion. The amount of $1 billion is a symbolic gesture. This is a great start in an industry that will grow tenfold. In turn, in Chile, China has invested about $13 billion over the years to buy shares in local power grids, medical facilities, highways, railroads, and so on. Chile's long Pacific coastline makes it an ideal, if not strategic, location for indirect Chinese investment. At the other end of the continent, in Brazil, authorities have taken out more than a dozen loans totaling $30 billion. Most of these are for power generation projects as well as oil and gas operations. In recent years, China has switched to logistics and technology. In 2017, for example, Chinese conglomerate ChemC acquired 90% of the port of Paranagua, the country's largest commercial port. And in 2021, Huawei Hikvision provided video surveillance with facial recognition to Brazil's most populous city, São Paulo. As these technologies are integrated into Brazil's infrastructure, there will be no turning back. Chinese companies will be able to dictate the terms of trade and technology to future generations in this. Argentina has 13 outstanding loans worth $17 billion. Chinese companies operate in all sectors of local industry, but mainly in construction, mining, and agriculture. But the $17 billion invested so far could well more than double in the coming years. Argentina is short of funds, and in 2022, it signed an investment agreement with China for nearly $24 billion. Of course, the situation is changing, but all these financial commitments, as impressive as they are, have a price, and sometimes their value goes beyond monetary norms. Through a network of embassies, companies, and quasi-government entities, each focused on specific goals, Beijing has created a soft power machine for itself. Using this soft power, China has coerced a number of local governments into unequal partnerships. But China's interests in South America go beyond geoeconomics. Peking is also working to secure the future of its military influence. In Peru, near Lima, Cosco Shipping and the Peruvian military are building a $450 million port in Chancay. It will be the first large-scale multi-purpose base of its kind in the region and could be urgently converted from civilian to military uses. To the south in Argentina's Neuquén is the Espacio Lejano Station. It is part of China's long-range space communications network for interplanetary space missions. From this base, China can conduct aerospace monitoring and intercept long-range signals. The El Sombrero space base is located to the north in Venezuela. From it, China has placed satellites in orbit along trajectories that would be inaccessible from its own territory. In addition, since 2005, China has built several ground control stations at this site that monitor thousands of satellites and objects in Earth orbit. In total, China has 11 ground control stations stationed throughout South America. Their exact mission and capabilities are unknown. It is likely that these facilities have both scientific and military objectives. Either way, China's growing influence in South America is a force to be reckoned with. It is like a wave of investment knocking countries off their feet. Peking backs up words with deeds, offering significant benefits to those who its agenda. America's response to all these developments so far has been tepid at best. Part of the reason lies in ideology. American society is no longer as interested in the idea of free trade as it once was. In addition, the United States has traditionally opposed leftist socialist governments. This complicates the political situation in the U.S. Senate. Coincidentally, most of South America is made up of leftist socialist governments. If you look at it from their point of view, cooperation with the United States is difficult to negotiate politically. Thus, unable to influence public opinion, the U.S. has decided to withdraw from South American affairs. Instead, it is watching from the sidelines, believing that time and circumstances will change and China will inadvertently make a mistake. As a result, Washington clings to the notion of American exceptionalism, convinced that its Monroe Doctrine will prevail like a captain who believes his ship is unsinkable.